Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Fins Nation. I am your host, Louis Sung, and today I have a very special guest, Alfredo Arteaga of the 3 Yards Per Carry, the last of the Pulse of Fins Nation crew who actually has not been on this show yet. Alf, how are you?
Doing great. Headed for vacation, my annual vacation. As soon as training camp ends every single year, I am gone.
So he's gonna be. This is a very special occasion then. So we're actually gonna be able to get one last burst of Alf here before he goes before the season actually starts. So a lot of stuff to talk about. We've been trying to talk about the roster stuff all throughout this week. We've been talking about the running back situation. We've been talking about the Christian Wilkins situation. So now I actually want to talk about the roster itself, what decisions the Dolphins made, whether we think that it was the right decision, whether we think it was the wrong decision, and the Dolphins rounding out their practice squad, of which I'm sure that you have some very interesting insight on some of the guys that the Dolphins brought in. There are a lot of interesting names, I will say that, some of which are actually recognizable too, and we'll get into all that. But before that, really quick, just want to go ahead and mention that, as always, this show is brought to you by our good friends over at You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix is the complete automotive wheel solution. Ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, and curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to You Brake Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less in their projected stat. They give you free squares, just like the Dak Prescott one that is live and is still available for you to pick. Just go ahead and go in there and check it out. They have special Taco Tuesday promos where you can get discounted props. And as you are listening to this, today is Flex Friday, which means that you're either going to be able to get your money back up to $20 if you lose, or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. Just a couple of weeks ago, I ended up winning $500 on Prize Picks. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up if you're any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, the promo code 5, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and let Prize Picks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with, and get started winning today. All right. So, Alf, there was a lot of stuff that happened during the Miami Dolphins cut down to 53. There were a lot of names that I guess some people were surprised by, and we're kind of still surprised that they didn't make the Dolphins practice squad. One name that I can immediately point out is the whole Robbie Chosen situation. I had said during the post-game show against the Jacksonville Jaguars, it kind of felt to me like the third wide receiver competition was a little bit underwhelming, to be perfectly honest, because I hadn't seen anything truly wow-worthy from Cedric Wilson or Braxton Berrios, and certainly not from Robbie Chosen, even though I think a lot of us were kind of hoping that the whole Robbie Chosen thing would work out. But apparently, all the speculation that he just wasn't getting with the program, it looks like it might have been right, because after the Dolphins have rounded out their practice squad and obviously the 53-man roster, one name that is, interestingly enough, very absent is Robbie Chosen. So what are your thoughts on that?
He started off camp okay, and he had a pretty decent chemistry with Tua Tagovailoa for the most part in camp, and he also had some good moments in camp and in practice. But then the games came, and it's just too many mistakes. And it's not only drop passes. He only had 2, I believe, in preseason. But you saw that mesh concept at the end where we're in the field. They had the perfect call on, and somebody screwed up. And I tend to believe that it's not Durham Smythe, who's been here for 4 years and who was really good in the system last year. I tend to believe that it was probably Robbie Chosen who screwed that play up. That play was going in for a touchdown if it gets completed. And My guess is that those issues were probably permeating his entire game throughout camp. And all we were seeing were the plays that he was making, but we weren't noticing the ones that he wasn't. And they decided to go with the guys that they trust and guys that have been here before. And I don't blame them.
No, I definitely can't blame them either. But it's just very interesting that when all things are said and done, like not even on the practice squad. Like I'm just looking at the practice squad list right now, and they've got quite a few names on there. So they have, for instance, Braylon Sanders. Obviously, they were able to sneak him back on there. We know that the Dolphins are very high on him. Tanner Connor is back at the wide receiver slash tight end slash whatever you want to assume he's going to become. But then there is another wide receiver on that practice squad, and it's not Robbie Chosen. It's a guy by the name of, I guess, Raleigh Webb. I had never heard of this man before, and his college is known as the Citadel. that's foreboding. Do you have any insight on this guy and why he might have been picked over Robbie Chosen?
He's 6'2", 212 pounds, but his reputation is as a blocker and as a physical player, but he's not much of a route runner or pass receiver. That's the the front page on Raleigh Webb. I don't think he's all too important. They have a lot of talent. They're pretty deep at wide receiver. The names that I think are really interesting as far as this practice squad goes is Darrington Evans. They picked him up because Jeff Wilson's on IR for at least the first 4 weeks. I saw that Drew Rosenhaus came out and he said he'll be back for week 5. There's not a problem, but that's his client. He's not gonna, he's gonna put a good face on this. So they needed to pick up a running back for the practice squad, and they picked up a guy who had a pretty good camp for the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills cut him.
Oh yeah, and he had a fantastic preseason. Like he had the big highlight play of the preseason, right?
Yep. So he seems like a nice player. He's a physical player. Actually, he took number 37, which is
Myles Gaskin's number.
Yeah, it's Myles Gaskin's number. But once you move on from there, look, I don't know too much about Nick Bowers, although I know he's another blocking tight end. But Jason Hines, who they took from the New England Patriots, is an interesting sort. He has good measurables, coming out of college, and I think this is another developmental type. But I think there's an opportunity there with Jason Hines. James Tunstall, we already know. We saw him in preseason. No, he's not much to write home about, but he is effectively, I believe he's the only true right tackle in Jackson as of right now. So, I guess that's added depth for the practice squad. Although, there's not much to write home about with James Tunstall. I don't think he was all that impressive, but you never know. He's a developmental type, and he is really, really a large man. Rashard Lawrence, everybody should know about Rashard Lawrence. He was a star at LSU. One of his best games against Alabama in that big showdown, LSU versus Alabama, and against Tua Tagovailoa. He sacked Tua Tagovailoa in that game, and he knocked away 2 passes from Tua Tagovailoa. Good pass rusher. He's still a young player, but he hasn't found his way onto rotations in the NFL yet. But he has a good reputation and he has great college tape, which is something good to have. And this one's going to be kind of interesting going forward. Joshua Kalu is a playmaker, and oddly enough, he has an interception in the NFL, and it was against Justin Herbert, of all people. So that's
always a good thing.
So that's good to know. And this one was really interesting. When I finally saw it, I was like, they finally got him. Was Chase Winovich. If you remember, what draft was it where Chase Winovich got taken and Dolphin fans wanted him instead? Who did the Dolphins take that year? If you could look it up.
I'm going to look that up right now, but it was actually very interesting when the Dolphins went ahead and grabbed him, because I remember how upset Dolphins fans were that he ended up not becoming a Miami Dolphin. There were
and he had a great rookie year. He had a great rookie year with the Patriots.
Yeah. So but now I'm wondering though, what exactly happened to him that all of a sudden he's a practice squatter and he's not like somebody that a priority free.
He's had injuries.
He's
had injuries, and then the Patriots had to upgrade with Josh Uche, and so he became a backup, and then decided, you know what, might as well cut bait here, because remember, he was I believe he was a second rounder. Who is it that the Dolphins passed up? Who is it that the Dolphins took up Chase Winovich? Because that's it's not fresh in my mind.
I'm trying to find it now. I'm trying to look it up. Because I'm what when did he get drafted? Was it 2019?
I believe so. I believe it was 2019.
Okay, so let me just look this up real quick. Okay,
I
yes,
can't believe I don't remember this.
Chase Winovich, and actually, it was not the Patriots actually picked before Miami, one pick before. So the New England Patriots selected Chase Winovich, and then that was in round 3, and then right after them, that's when the Dolphins selected Michael Dieter out of Wisconsin.
Okay.
But if we're talking about if you're saying what did they do in the second round, or maybe you're saying that they should have picked Chase Winovich in the second round, what the Dolphins did at that point, I am
Oh,
actually
okay.
I
I
don't
remember.
see the
I
Dolphins
I remember what happened. Dolphins traded that second round pick for Josh
for
Rosen.
Josh Rosen. Yeah, I just remembered.
That's what everybody was upset about, and I now remember I was upset about it too because I wanted Chase Winovich. I thought he was going to be a nice player, and of course, after you saw him as a rookie that year, wow, like he was really really good, and we're like, okay, we blew it, okay, but we got him anyway.
No, we got him at the end. At the end of the day, we got him, and there's still a possibility. I know that I just did a show about this, but I guess there is still a chance that the Dolphins could get Jonathan Taylor instead of Noah Igbenogany after all is said and done. So there is still that chance to make up for
Yeah.
past mistakes.
But what was interesting is what these moves say about what they think about on defense. Vic Fangio had no use whatsoever for any of the young guys. If you think about it, Mitchell Agu he wasn't brought back. Garrett Nelson was not brought back. They decided to go with older, more experienced players and Cameron Good and Chase Winovich on the outside on the practice squad. And then they retained Anthony Johnson. They brought him back, AJ Johnson, the linebacker that they signed, and then they played that little game that they always seem to do. So yeah, absolutely. Like, they have actually like turned a new leaf on their philosophy on the practice squad. As of late, it's always been about that young guy and developing guys. And this year they've decided to go completely with veterans. Like, who's the developmental guy that's in the like? Look, do we really think that they're developing Ethan Bonner? I hope not.
I mean,
Okay.
I at that point I would have tried to bring back Trill Williams. Why waste their time with Ethan Bonner? Was it really the injury was that bad and he just couldn't play anymore?
I don't know, but the only other developmental guy was is Randy Charlton, who's a heavy-handed defensive end. They liked him a lot in OTAs, but he didn't have much of a camp. Who's the other guy? Like Tanner Connors is in year 2, so
James
Alama,
Tunstall's a rookie out of Cincinnati,
yeah,
which you talked about him.
Alama Ulave, I guess. Like they're trying to repeat some of the stuff that's happened with Keon Smith, and then to see if they could get lucky once again with like a James Tunstall. But veterans is the name of the game, I guess, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
I mean, that's perfectly fine with me. If Vic Fangio's defense is that complicated and that complex that you need guys who have NFL experience, I'm perfectly fine with that. Joshua Kalu, and there were a lot of people, you mentioned him already, but there were a lot of people talking about him as somebody who the Dolphins should have gone after in the offseason. So the fact that he made his way here now, there's a possibility that they may decide to use him fairly often. We have a lot of guys that we can actually call up to the active roster if we absolutely need to. But I can't help but wonder how soon we're going to burn through all these temporary call-ups. I mean, River Craycraft ended up running out of those. What was it, like 5 weeks into the season? He just had to be called up to the regular roster at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I can't help but wonder how many of these practice squad guys are not going to be practice squatters for very long. So we shall see on that front. Now, some of the things that were actually shocking to me, I was very, I guess the word is upset that the Dolphins actually managed to get something out of these guys and they let them go anyway, especially considering who they decided to keep instead. Like, for instance, I understand that Keon Smith did a fantastic job. I get it. I'm not going to begrudge him what he did, but I'm just looking at it from the perspective of, why did the Dolphins decide to? They could have probably gotten rid of somebody else. Maybe somebody else could have snuck in there and gotten away with not being picked up. Actually, I'm looking at the roster now. There's only one actual guard on here, and it's Lester Cotton. But Lester Cotton probably could have escaped and gone to the practice squad, maybe. But the fact that they let Ryan Hayes go even after the training camp and the preseason that he had, I'm just thinking to myself, that's your rookie that you drafted. Was Keon Smith really that much better than Ryan Hayes the whole way through? I thought Ryan Hayes was really good.
Yeah, I thought that they needed to keep both. To be honest with you, and the way that you could have done that is by Alex Smith. I think they cut the wrong guy, and I said this today. I was in the press room and we were talking about this today, and I was telling everybody like, look, if you want the NFL to poach your 6th and 7th round draft picks, make sure that it's a converted wide receiver with a lot of speed that played at Stanford and an offensive tackle that had a really good preseason that played at Michigan. All of those guys those guys have tape out there with every single NFL team. And by the way, I didn't think. Did you think that it was suspicious that the Colts put in claims for both guys and actually got Ryan Hayes? Like that was just ridiculous. Okay, but you know, I would say that every single team in the NFL is very much aware of these two guys. You're not going to sneak them past the NFL on the waiver wire. You're just not going to sneak them through. So I think that if they were going to be exposed, and I said this before, like if you expose these guys, they will be picked up. The whole league knows about them, and somebody that might not have a very, very full roster might say, you know what, we'll take a chance with him because we wanted to draft him anyway in the 7th round and we couldn't because the Dolphins took him. Well, guess what? Now we can take him. So, I feared that they were going to be poached if they were let go, and sure enough, they were. And it's a lost opportunity. And people say, "Oh, who cares?" They're not here because your roster's really good. These are opportunities that you're going to have to next year go back into the market, into the UDFA market, or possibly use a late round pick to try to replace guys that you just let go for no apparent reason whatsoever. Now, we shall see. It's a long season. So, you never know if Ryan Hayes and Elijah Higgins can find their way back here. Now the Cardinals are a tanking team, so I think that Elijah Higgins is gone for good. But Ryan Hayes, you never know. You never know if the Colts actually cut bait with him sometime during the season, and we can poach him off of their practice squad. You never know if that's the case going forward. So we shall see.
Yeah,
But in my opinion, it was a mistake.
I agree with that. And considering that the Dolphins have had such a poor track record of finding good offensive linemen as it is, I figured that if I were Chris Greer, I'd want to keep every single good offensive line draft pick that I've ever had to say, I can point to and say, oh, look, I got one right, guys. Look, I got one right. Look, there's another one here. I got Robert Hunt right, and I got Ryan Hayes right. But okay, whatever. I mean, Keon Smith is technically, what is it? He's an acorn, right? We didn't draft him. He's an undrafted free agent. So I guess he's learned some things from Teron Armstead. So huzzah for that. Maybe he can be the replacement in a couple years. We'll see, I guess. We'll wrap it up really soon here, but I just wanted to very quickly just get your overall thoughts on the roster before we call it a show here, because I grant you there is a lot of talent on this team, and guys that I haven't actually gotten a chance to see because I didn't watch for them very often, like Perry Nickerson. I don't know anything. I don't really know a whole lot about him. You mentioned Rashard Lawrence. You talked about him. I would have to go back and watch some actual film on him because I don't know very much about him. There's a lot of players on here that are actually a lot better than maybe we're giving credit. I know that Chris Coffin was talking about Chris Brooks on OnlyFins, which is $3 a month, folks, if you want to get in on that information. But he had some very nice things to say about Brooks as well, and it's very interesting. Brooks is actually the biggest guy in the running back room. So I don't know. Do you think that maybe down the line, Devon Achane and Chris Brooks maybe can become the running back duo of the future?
It's a possibility. Remember that this coaching staff has very, very good track record with finding late round draft picks and undrafted guys off the street for their running back room. So, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Chris Brooks actually sticks with this team because it's their MO. That's how they found Elijah Mitchell. Although, Elijah Mitchell had a great season, then he gets injured, and then they said, okay, screw this, we're gonna go spend a bunch of picks for Christian McCaffrey. So, but in the meantime, they used, what was it, a 6th round pick on Elijah Mitchell. So, and that was a guy that I really liked coming out, by the way. But they have a good track record in that regard, and I'm interested to see if they actually pulled it off. His tape was stellar in the preseason, and now he's a roster player. And since Jeff Wilson will be out for at least the first 4 weeks, you never know. He might be counted on to actually run the ball in one of these games the first 4 weeks.
And if he does well, then all this stuff about Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs and Derek and whoever else you want to throw out there, it feels like they were linked to pretty much every single running back that was on the market except for Ezekiel Elliott and Leonard Fournette. So if they can manage to get something out of him, I would be absolutely thrilled. I feel like he's earned it. He's done everything right. He's being very mature about his situation. Honestly, I'm rooting for this kid now because I really feel like there's something there with him.
Yeah, no.
Although apparently, what's very weird though, this is just a minor note. Apparently, the Dolphins roster page does not know how old he is. It just says NA on his roster.
Well, I got the official roster in front of me, which is the one that the team hands out, and his date of birth is 2000, January 11th, 2000, which will make him 22 years old.
22 or 23.
23. He's actually 23. He's
Okay.
23 years old.
Okay, so I was just like, how weird. He's the only guy that's like, we don't know how old he is. I don't know. We didn't check his birth certificate. All right. Real quick, is there anybody that the Dolphins kept beyond Keon Smith that you're wondering why did they do that?
Well, besides Ethan Bonner, I don't get.
But he's practice squad. I mean, for the 53.
Okay, for the 53, man, it's really hard because it was a really, really good 50. It was a good roster even for preseason. I thought it was pretty stacked, and I honestly can't see a guy that I completely disagree with. Every single guy on this roster is a guy that I expected to either make the team or have a really, really good chance. Where's the surprise to me? I don't see the surprise. I guess if there is a surprise, it's that Justin Bethel is not injured, because that brace he was wearing on his left knee just didn't look good to me. It looked like it was a pretty bad injury. So, and another surprise is that Elijah Campbell is going to be fine pretty soon. But other than that, I really don't see the surprise here. I just
Even
don't.
Tyler Kroft?
No, because because look, they probably only need because of the type of offense that they're going to run. But you want to have a little bit more experience in the room, and you want at least a third guy, because I think two, even if you only run 21 personnel and 11 personnel, so you really only play two tight ends, you do need that third guy. You do need that third guy because you never know what happens. You never know if Durham Smythe gets injured or something. So I really don't see the actual surprise here. It's very a highly predictable 53, really.
Well, and I guess if nothing else, that just means the Dolphins did a fantastic job with their evaluations. So, I guess that about covers it. So, Alf, I just want to go ahead and just say thank you for taking some time before your vacation to join me here on Fins Nation. And for those of you who have not already done so, make sure you're going to U-Break Wheel Fix. You can reach out to them at 305-748-0112 or online at ubreakwheelfix.com if you want to get your wheels fixed up or if you just want to give your ride the ultimate Dolphins makeover. And of course, prizepicks.com. Use that promo code 5. That's FIVE. They will match up to $100 on your deposit when you sign up using that promo code. As you are listening to this, today is Flex Friday, so make sure you make your $20 bet. And if you win, hooray for you. If you don't win, the worst that happens is you get your $20 back to try again the next day. So there's really nothing to lose at that point. Go to prizepicks.com and use that promo code. And for myself and for Alfredo Arteaga of the 3 yards per carry, make sure you're going to OnlyFins, $3 a month. We will see you all next week for some more episodes of Fins Nation.